Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload, and The DJ was playing something cheerful and loud enough to blur conversations into a warm hum. String lights looped across the ballroom, and glasses chimed like tiny bells. Our company rented the whole place for a year-end party, and for the first hour, everything looked exactly how a good life should look. My co-workers laughing, her dress catching the light, the feeling that nothing ugly could claw its way into a night like this. I'd been on 2 back-to-back projects all week, half dead on my feet, but I told myself to show up for her. She always said I didn't try hard enough with social things. So I tried. I even learned the chorus to the playlist she loved so we could sing it together when it came on. When the slow song started, I reached for her hand. I did it gently, the way I used to when we were new, when everything between us felt as easy as breathing. She let me guide her onto the dance floor, past couples who swayed like they were alone. We moved, not perfectly, but in the way regular people do when they aren't thinking about it. For a brief measure, I thought the hard months were slipping off us like rainwater. I leaned in to kiss her, simple and quick, the kind you give your wife in public to say, "Hey, I'm here with you." She shoved me back with a flat palm to my chest, not a playful push, a stop. Her eyes cut around the room like cameras were watching. "Stop," she hissed, loud enough for nearby couples to hear. "You're embarrassing me. I don't want to look taken." The air went strange. I heard someone laugh softly, the nervous kind. I stared at her, waiting for a smile, a wink, some sign she was joking. What arrived instead was a line that sliced through the music like a dropped glass. "I'm in love with someone else." A few people actually stopped dancing. The lights seemed brighter. I felt my heart stumble, then steady in a way I didn't recognize. There are moments when the world expects a scene. Shouting, tears, a drink thrown, security called. I was supposed to be that man. Instead, my body turned to a calm I hadn't known I possessed. I slid my wedding ring off, the metal warm from my skin, and set it on the nearest cocktail table, as if I were setting down a coin before a game. "Problem solved," I said, not unkindly. I walked off the floor. No rush, no drama. The song kept going for a few beats before the DJ changed it, too late to fix anything. Eyes followed me the way eyes follow an accident that already happened. At our table, I took a breath that felt like the first honest inhale in months. Someone touched my shoulder, one of my teammates who never knew what to say in tense moments. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. He squeezed once and left me to the water sweating in its glass. She didn't come back to the table. She drifted toward the bar, toward people who preferred mess as entertainment. I sat there and remembered other rooms, other nights. The way she used to lean into me at weddings. The way she once grabbed my jacket in a parking lot and kissed me like we would miss our plane if we didn't. And then I remembered the last year. The late meetings that always had a perfectly timed reason. The phone turned face down. The scent that wasn't her perfume settling on her scarf. The sudden hunger for space that claimed the bed between us. I had not wanted to connect the dots. People in love will draw circles around anything to avoid drawing lines. The ring stayed on the table for a long minute while whispers spread. It glinted under the lights, then disappeared when a server, not wanting trouble, set it into a folded napkin and placed it gently near my plate. I thanked him. I pocketed the ring. Then I stood, wished my team a safe night, and left before anyone could try to be brave for me. Outside, winter had leaned its shoulder against the city. I walked without hurry, past the doorman who pretended not to have heard anything, down the steps and into the kind of cold that makes your ears ring. I could have called a friend, a brother, a taxi. I could have called her. Instead, I walked, watching the party's reflected light stutter across parked cars, thinking about the last time we'd talked about forever like it was just logistics, mortgage, vacations, maybe a dog. At home, I made tea because doing something small and gentle felt like rebellion against the ugliness of the night. I sat at the kitchen island and looked at the corkboard where we kept our life pinned in tiny rectangles. Dentist reminder, flight confirmation from the fall, a recipe she'd written for a soup we never made. I turned the ring over in my palm until the metal cooled, and my skin stopped remembering it. By the time her key turned in the lock, it was after midnight. She slipped in with the careful quiet of a teenager breaking curfew. Her makeup had faded just enough to make her look unfamiliar. We stared at each other across the room like strangers who'd arrived at the wrong house. You made a scene, she said, as if the words on the dance floor had belonged to anyone else. I almost laughed. I made it quiet. She folded her arms. Can we please not do this now? We're already doing it, I said softly. You said you're in love with someone else. She looked away, then back, the way people do when they try on a lie and it doesn't fit. I didn't mean... You did. For a second, her face flickered with something almost human. Fear, maybe. Or relief that the secret had crawled out where it could breathe. We're not happy, she said finally. I didn't want to humiliate you. You forced it. You pushed me away, I said. And then you told the truth. I only moved the ring. Silence ran a finger along the edge of the counter. She glanced toward the hallway like she wanted to vanish into the bedroom and wake up in a different story. I need sleep, she said, tired now. We'll talk tomorrow. You'll sleep in the guest room, I said, not unkindly. I need the bed tonight. She stared like she couldn't decide whether to be offended or relieved. Then she took her phone, her charger, and a sweater from the back of a chair and disappeared down the hall. I listened to the soft click of the door and the smaller sound after. The one that says a person exhaled the truth and hates how light they suddenly feel. I didn't sleep. I opened the drawer where we kept our folder of joint documentation and laid everything out. Bank statements, the mortgage, the auto-pay list. I'd always been the bookkeeper, the one who balanced numbers like bowls on a tray. I'd done it because I'm good with details. Now I did it because I needed a map. At 3 a.m., I started a list. It wasn't a list of her wrongs. It was a list of realities I could control. I wrote in clean block letters to steady my hands: direct deposit, savings account, card with her as authorized user, card with me as authorized user on hers, health insurance, car title. A quiet savings account I'd started before we married, small and mostly ignored. Our emergency fund. I underlined the last one. If this wasn't an emergency, then the word had no meaning. At dawn I showered, dressed, and left a note under her phone on the hallway table. I'll be back late. Take the day for yourself. It wasn't kindness, it was space, so we wouldn't say things that couldn't be unsaid. I drove to work and failed to work. I built nothing. I answered email with the precision of a sleepwalker. At lunch I called a lawyer recommended by a client who'd once whispered, "If you ever need someone calm." He made room for me that afternoon. His office smelled like old books and good coffee. He listened while I told the story, not interrupting, not flinching. When I finished, he tapped his pen twice and said, "You did the right thing by not exploding. Judges hate fireworks. We'll move steadily. First, protect your accounts. Second, document. Third, do not threaten, do not post, do not stage scenes. If she's serious about another relationship, she will hand us what we need without realizing. You keep your dignity and your ledger." I left with a plan that felt like a railing on a steep staircase. I called the bank and asked about measures. Spending limits, alerts, removal of authorized users. The representative spoke in a voice designed for emergencies. "We can set daily caps today," she said. "We can require branch verification for transfers above a threshold. We can overnight new cards." I said yes to all of it. Each yes a board nailed down on a shaking bridge. At home that evening she wasn't there. A text said she'd be out with friends. I let the phone buzz into silence. I cooked eggs, the simplest thing, and ate standing up like a man passing through his own kitchen. When she finally returned, she smelled like a bar where nobody eats dinner. She didn't come into the kitchen. She slid into the guest room and shut the door softly, as if quiet could turn back time. The next week, we orbited each other like planets that forgot how to share a sun. She worked late even when she didn't work late. I started running on the river trail again because I needed something predictable. Feet, breath, horizon. One night, while stretching by the water, I realized I had stopped checking her location. Not because I trusted her, but because I didn't need it anymore. The party had been the confession. Everything else would be paperwork. On Friday, my boss insisted I take a long lunch. He's a decent man. He said, blunt as a hammer, "You don't have to tell me anything. Just don't let this eat your work from the inside." I laughed for the first time since the music stopped. "That's exactly what I'm trying to prevent," I said. That afternoon, a delivery arrived. New cards, new passwords, new alert settings. I took photos of the envelopes and filed the confirmations in a cloud folder only I could reach. A tiny part of me hated the bureaucracy of heartbreak. A larger part felt grateful for it. Systems can be kinder than people. They follow rules. Saturday, she suggested we talk like adults. We sat at opposite ends of the couch like diplomats who forgot their translator. She explained that she'd grown, that the marriage felt stale, that she needed more, and found it unexpectedly. Every sentence was a polite envelope around a blade. I didn't ask who he was. I already knew enough, someone who liked to be seen, someone who admired himself in reflective surfaces. You can tell the kind by the way a woman's tone changes when she mentions his name. It gets airy, as if the vowels were helium. "What do you want?" I asked. "I don't want a war," she said. "I want to separate like civilized people. I want to be fair." "You told me on a dance floor that you didn't want to look taken," I said. "Fair begins where that ends." Her mouth tightened. "So you're going to punish me." "I'm going to protect myself," I said. "That's not punishment. That's oxygen." We didn't fight. The fight had already happened, quiet and public, in front of our co-workers and the string lights. She retreated to the guest room. I went for a walk. I stopped at the corner where we once waited for fireworks and promised each other we'd always pick the other first when life got crowded. I stood under the same lamp and understood that we hadn't broken in one night. We'd eroded. The dance floor only revealed the shape of the shoreline after the tide went out. On Monday, HR sent out photos from the party. I was in one frame, blurred at the edge, my hand empty where a ring should have been. People forwarded the album like it was harmless fun. I closed the email and returned to a spreadsheet that didn't care who loved whom. That evening, a bank alert chimed. Attempt to transfer $6,800 from joint savings to a new external account. Status: on hold. Dual authorization required. I stared at the notification until the words steadied. When she walked through the door later, she avoided my eyes. She opened the fridge and closed it without taking anything. We moved past each other like museum visitors afraid to set off alarms. I didn't mention the alert. Not yet. I printed it and placed it in a folder with the lawyer's card on the cover. Somewhere between the couch conversation and the held transfer, my anger cooled into something more useful. Not ice. Clarity. A few nights later, I woke at 3 to the gentle click of the guest room door. I listened to her whisper into her phone in the hallway, the way people whisper when they're trying not to wake the truth. "No, he won't make trouble," she said. "He's decent." I lay there and thought, decency isn't weakness. It's a choice about where to put strength. When morning came, I brewed coffee and wrote a letter to myself. Not a manifesto, a reminder. It said, "Don't dramatize. Don't beg. Don't bargain with the part of her that loves applause. Document. Be kind until you must be firm. Leave clean." I signed it with my own name like a contract. A week after the party, my lawyer filed the first papers. He called them measured steps. I called them a path out. We didn't announce anything. We simply moved. The bank added the verification gates we'd discussed. The house title stayed where it belonged. I shifted my direct deposit. I removed her from my card and removed myself from hers. Each confirmation email felt like a small lock sliding into place. That Friday she texted, "Staying at Jenna's, don't wait up. There is always a Jenna." I wished them both a lovely night and meant it in the strange way you mean things when you're done being surprised by people. Saturday morning I boxed up the framed photos that made the house feel like an argument with the past. I left 3 on the mantel, my parents on their porch, us on the day we signed for the house, and the little candid of her laughing in our old kitchen with a smear of flour on her cheek. I didn't leave it out because I wanted her back. I left it out because I wanted to remember that we were real once, and that leaving can honor what was real without taking it with you. In the afternoon, I ran into a coworker from the party at the grocery store. We did the awkward dance of people who know and don't know what to say. He finally blurted, "For what it's worth, the way you handled it?" People noticed. I nodded, thanked him, and changed the subject to peaches. But on the drive home, his words sat in the passenger seat like an honest friend. Maybe dignity isn't dramatic, but it's loud in the right rooms. That night I placed the ring in a small wooden box I'd made years ago for an anniversary gift. I set the box on a closet shelf and closed the door. It wasn't a ceremony. It was housekeeping. When the second transfer attempt triggered, Larger this time, labeled innocently as moving expenses, the bank called me directly. I thanked the manager by name. She had a voice like limestone, calm, unbreakable. "We have you covered," she said. "Nothing moves without both of you present." I told her I appreciated the human kindness behind institutional language. She laughed softly and said, "Everyone deserves a good policy when their life gets messy." A few days later, she proposed dinner, to talk. We met at a quiet place 2 blocks from home because neither of us wanted to be seen making a new memory in a restaurant we loved. She arrived early, hair smoothed into effort. I arrived on time, not because I owed punctuality to the conversation, but because I owed it to myself. "I don't want to fight," she said, and to her credit, she didn't. She asked for a separation timeline, for logistics, for a way to do this without public spectacle. I listened. I said yes to the parts that were clean and no to the parts that asked me to pretend. When the check came, she reached for a card and froze when the screen flashed red. She tried another and smiled too brightly when it worked. I didn't react. The server didn't either. The world kept turning. We walked home without touching. At the stoop, she looked at me for a long second, like she was trying to memorize the shape of a life she'd already stepped out of. "You really meant it," she said, like the discovery surprised her. "I did," I said, "and I still do." She nodded. For the first time since the dance floor, she looked like the woman I married, not because she was kind, but because she was honest. "I'm moving out next week," she said. "It's better that way." "It is," I said, and felt a quiet sadness that didn't sting, grief without the poison. That night, after she closed the guest room door, I stood alone in the living room and listened to the house. People say homes remember. I hoped ours would remember us at our best. I hoped it would forget the music cutting out and the whisper that wasn't a whisper at all. Before I went to bed, I wrote one more line in the letter to myself and dated it. "You did not lose control. You chose it." Let the next part be simple. I slept hard and woke up hungry. The future had started while I wasn't looking. The morning after the party, the world outside looked ordinary. But inside, everything had shifted. She moved through the house with an edge of defensiveness, as if she could erase what dozens of people had seen with a sharper tone and forced composure. When she poured her coffee, I noticed her hands shook just enough to ripple the surface. "You embarrassed me," she said flatly, without looking at me. I almost laughed. "You told a room full of people you didn't want to look taken. I just gave you what you wanted." Her eyes flashed, but she didn't argue further. She left for work early, and I sat at the table with my laptop open, staring at numbers that didn't add up. Our joint accounts, once a symbol of teamwork, now looked like doors she could walk through at any moment to strip what I had built. And from what I saw in her face last night, she was reckless enough to try. That afternoon, I went to the bank. Calm, polite, efficient. I asked about safeguards, withdrawal limits, verification holds, dual authorization. The banker explained options, and I quietly locked down everything: new alerts, new caps, my direct deposit rerouted. In an hour, I created walls she wouldn't see until she slammed into them. Days blurred into a strange routine. She stayed out late, claiming dinners or drinks with friends. I let her. I cooked simple meals, worked in my study, and answered messages from people who had witnessed the party. A coworker texted, "You handled yourself with more dignity than anyone I know." Another wrote, "She made herself look small, not you." Their words didn't erase the sting, but they steadied me. One night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the dresser. The preview lit up the screen. "When will you tell him?" He looked pathetic last night. My jaw tightened, but I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to. I already knew the shape of her betrayal. What mattered wasn't the name of the man. It was that she had chosen him over loyalty, chosen public humiliation over private honesty. Instead of confronting her, I documented. Screenshots of texts. Alerts from the bank showing blocked transfer attempts. $4,500 here, $6,800 there. Each flagged, each denied. Evidence piled up neatly in a folder my lawyer would later call airtight. The real moment came 2 weeks later. She had organized a small dinner at her parents' house, insisting we attend together to look civil. I agreed, though every step toward that door felt like walking into a performance. The table was set, wine poured, conversation forced. She laughed too loudly, touched her hair too often, her mask slipping under the weight of what everyone already suspected. After dessert, she stood to make a toast. My stomach tightened. Her toasts had become daggers. She raised her glass, smiled sweetly, and said, "To new beginnings, to chasing happiness no matter what it costs." Her mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her father coughed awkwardly. I didn't move. Then, she excused herself to pay the bill at the restaurant attached to the venue. She wanted a gesture, a display of independence, maybe even a show of strength. But within minutes, the waiter returned, face apologetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Your card has been declined. Would you like to try another?" Her face drained of color. She pulled out a second card. Declined. A third. Same result. The room grew unbearably quiet, every eye fixed on her as she fumbled, muttering about bank errors. The waiter shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward me. I placed my card down calmly, without a word. Transaction approved. Her parents looked at her, then at me. Confusion etched deep. I offered no explanation. The silence did all the work. That night, back at home, she erupted. "You did this to me," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You're sabotaging me." I looked at her evenly. "No, I'm protecting myself. You wanted to be single. Now you know what single feels like." She collapsed onto the couch, tears streaking her makeup, but they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of a gambler watching the table sweep away her chips. I left her there, retreating to the study where the ring sat in its napkin from the party. A small, gleaming punctuation mark at the end of our story. Within weeks, the fallout was complete. Her affair partner distanced himself once the whispers spread at work. HR launched an inquiry after complaints about their close relationship. Promotions evaporated. Friends who had laughed with her at parties stopped answering her calls. She moved into a small apartment on the edge of town, renting furniture, paying bills with dwindling savings. As for me, my business thrived. Word of my composure spread further than gossip about her betrayal. Clients respected steadiness. Employees trusted me more. I built a life without her, not with fury, but with quiet certainty. Months later, she appeared at my workshop door, smaller somehow, hair undone, eyes hollow. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I set down my tools, wiped sawdust from my hands, and looked at her. "No," I said softly, "you made a choice." She begged, first for forgiveness, then for sympathy, finally for acknowledgement. I gave her nothing, not cruelty, not comfort, just silence. That was the final revenge. Not the ring on the table, not the declined cards, not the whispers that destroyed her reputation. It was the peace she could never touch, the life I rebuilt without her, the calm that came from knowing I hadn't lost a wife. I'd lost a liar. And as I locked the workshop that night, the ring still tucked away, I realized the story had ended not in shouting, but in quiet clarity. She wanted to be seen as single. Now she was, entirely.